What's up, boys and girls? My name is Brandon, and today I want to talk to you about something that ruined me to my core. But before we do that, it would mean a lot to me if you go check out patreon.com/alteredwalters and support me over there. As some of you know that frequent my channel, I am a full-time employee and very busy college student, so making these videos is what I love to do, and I would love to be able to support myself with them. And with your guys' help, that can be done. So go check that out and follow me on Twitter, all that fun stuff. The links will be below. So I want to start today's video with a story. I think that's the easiest and kind of most proper way to delve into what I want to talk about today, and kind of what's going on. As you've seen the title, so you obviously know what I'm talking about anyway, but that doesn't matter. So last night on my drive home, I have about an hour commute between work both ways, so 2 hours total, but you know, whatever. So my drive home last night, I was listening to a podcast with Jessica Chobot and Bowser from the Nerdist Network, called Bizarre States. In this podcast, they talk about conspiracies and paranormal and all that weird stuff that I'm into, but myself and a lot of other people don't necessarily believe. It's just interesting and, you know, stuff like that. They talked about something called the Berenstain theory and what is going on with that situation. I was so baffled and amazed by what they talked about that I actually called my wife. And when I called my wife, I said this. I said, "Do you remember the cartoon bears and the book series, the Berenstain Bears?" And she obviously said yes. And I said, "How do you spell that?" And she said, "I don't know, you know." So I said, "Well, it's spelled Berenstein, right? The Berenstain Bears." And she said, "Well, we've talked about this before, Brandon. It's like a theory or conspiracy, right?" And I'm like, "No, I've never, I just heard about this today." I'm like, I'm blown. Like, this is incredible to me. I'm so confused and like questioning my childhood. And my wife goes, "No, we've talked about this before. You were very upset when this happened." She said, "This is a discussion we had not too long ago about how Berenstain and what's going on with that." So in short, last night, not only did I relearn of this atrocity, but it bothered me so much the first time, I completely blocked it out of my memory and digressed to the point where I had never heard of it, which is crazy, I guess. But she swears that we talked about it, so it must be true. I trust her. But so basically, we all remember the Berenstain Bears. It was a book series. We all read it in elementary school. Like, if you're around my age or a little bit older, I guess, you know what I'm talking about. The Berenstain Bears. It's a family of bears. They teach you life lessons. It's awesome. There was a cartoon, yada, yada, yada. It's Stein. It always has been. It always will be in my mind. But supposedly, this came to relevancy when Jane, I believe is her name. And if it's not, I apologize. There are some facts that I know, but they're in the back of my mind right now. I can't remember them. But the creators of the books, the male had since been dead, but the female, the wife, passed away. And when she passed away, the obituary was posted, and her name was Berenstain. You know, Berenstain. And a lot of people were like, "Well, that's upsetting. You misspelled their name. You know, that sucks." So they emailed these people, and eventually when you delve through the rabbit hole, their name has always been Berenstain. Ever since they came into existence, their name has been Berenstain. It has been called the Berenstain Bears. It's spelled A-I-N. And this is something that a lot of people are like, "No, it's Berenstain." But other people are like, "No, it's Berenstain." And there's a couple theories of this, and I'm going to delve in with the most ludicrous one first, and then we'll talk about the other one that I think is probably the more likely scenario. So there's a theory floating around that as a child, it was the Berenstain Bears. We all grew up in a time when Berenstain was what it was. It was E-I-N. That was the world we lived in. And once we got to a certain age and quit reading these books, we were thrust into a different universe or parallel timeline. Now, this might sound ridiculous. I understand that. And I don't buy into all of these weird things, but I do buy into a lot of them. We know that there are other dimensions, the fourth dimensions, there are other universes and planets and black holes exist and all this fun stuff. So when you take the things we do know and you question the things that are theories, so they have some principle behind them, but there's no fact to them yet, there's a chance that these things are true. So take that with a grain of salt, do your research. There's a lot of stuff out here, or out on the web, not just about parallel timelines and universes, but even when associated with the Berenstain theory. So take the theory with a grain of salt. But supposedly, when we hit a certain age, you went from Berenstain to Berenstain in a different timeline. It's suggested that throughout your daily life, every time you make a decision, you split off into another parallel timeline. Like, right now I'm making a YouTube video, but I could have eaten lunch. So, the universe I'm in now, I decided to do this, but there's a different universe me that is currently eating a sandwich. Or there's another universe me that's been dead for 10 years because I walked outside and got hit by a bus. Different, like, branching theories like that. It's a very common thing. Like I said, there's tons of research, there's college classes, it's a real thing. It's an investigated thing. We're looking for proof and we're trying to prove this thing, but it's commonly held that it is possible. So, the theory on that one is we're in a universe where it was Berenstain and it became Berenstain. And there's no reason as to why. However, supposedly there's no proof to this. Supposedly their son, Mark Berenstain, made a statement that during the immigration process of his grandparents from Ellis Island in the 1920s-ish, like many of these people did when immigrating, the officers did to these people, I mean, they would change their names to Americanize them. Berenstain is commonly believed, or anything ending in Steen, is commonly believed to be of Jewish descent, and it's easier to pronounce as Stein, as we know, like Frankenstein, Einstein, Goldstein, things like that. But it's believed that this Ellis Island officer changed their name to Stain, and it has always been Stain. This Mark Berenstain man supposedly said that, it's something that he hears all the time, that, his name, when you look at it, you instantly think Berenstain because it's easier to pronounce and things like that. But his name's always been Berenstain. The Bears have always been Berenstain. Get over yourselves. So take that with a grain of salt. There's no proof that that was him. Supposedly, this is the first time he has ever spoken about his family name, and this was a comment on a blog post within a couple hours of the blog post posting. So there's a lot of questions there. Google alerts were around at the time, so his name could have pinged, and he could have got an alert and got interested by it, and yada, 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 but who knows? That's another one of those crazy things. You've got to kind of look at this with the Occam's razor ideology. Well, this is a wordy video today, I know, I'm sorry guys, but this is just incredibly interesting, and I think you should sit back and enjoy it. So the Occam's razor is basically the theory that the solution with the least assumptions is the one that's the most correct. The Berenstain situation where we believe that there's different universes and, why can't we find proof that it's Berenstain, and the fact that when I see a book that now says Berenstain Bears and not Berenstain Bears, I'm sickened. It actually bothers me. I work at a school, so the ability to look at a children's book and it clearly says Berenstain is weird to me. It's like a horror movie. It's really bothersome. But anyway, the Occam's razor theory kind of says that, well, that's too complicated to be the solution. So what's a more reasonable assumption or solution to draw? Well, then we get into the Mandela theory. Mandela. Yeah. Nelson Mandela was an activist who was jailed. You can look him up and do research there. It was believed that It is believed that Nelson Mandela had died in jail. However, that's not true. He died in 2013, which wasn't that long ago, but it was a commonly held belief that he had passed away in jail years before. This started a conspiracy idea or theory called the Mandela effect. Nelson Mandela. It's hard for me to say his last name because of Mandala, which is a type of spherical art, traditionally in tattoos, which I don't know. Look it up. Words. And there's a lot of theories there. So a lot of people are saying that it had always been Berenstain, and we associated it with the last names we knew, that ended in Steen and not Stain. So when we saw it, we pronounced it Berenstein. The Berenstain Bears. That was weird. Berenstain Bears. And not Berenstain, like it was. This theory can hold some water because that's their last name, and as kids, if a teacher says Berenstain Bears or pronounces it that way, you're gonna believe that. However, as a kid, I feel like I do have a memory of asking why it was pronounced Berenstein even though it's with an A. So then that makes me question the fact that, did this ever really happen? Was it ever Berenstein, or was it always Berenstain? And now I have all these diluted memories. It's something that if you sit down and think about it, it will really bother you. But I think the Nelson Mandela theory can help play into this. So let me take another tangent, even though I know I'm full of tangents today. Let's take another tangent and go off some examples of the Mandela theory. Like I said, people think he had passed away way prior to the time he did. People also think Betty White had died 10 to 15 years ago, when clearly she's still alive. A lot of people think that Patrick Swayze recovered from cancer, and they have this vivid memory of him being okay, but sadly Patrick passed away from his cancer. There are a lot of people that believe the Fonz from Happy Days, Henry Winkler, is that his name? Yeah, it is believed that he died on filming of Happy Days, but clearly he's still alive to this day. Interview with a Vampire is an interview with a vampire. It's always been an interview with the vampire, but we all think it's A. What is the show that ran for 10 seasons about women in New York? It was called Sex and the City, not Sex in the City. I cannot tell you the amount of people, millions of people, that this happens to them constantly. This is a very common effect that happens. And a lot of people don't want to give it any credit, but think about it. It happens all the time, and you can get instances of this by just asking the people around you what things are called or how they pronounce them. So, as the Occam's razor theory or idea would tell us, this has the least assumptions that it's a commonly held mistake, such as definitely or defiantly. As teenagers do very commonly when they text or write messages, instead of saying definitely, they say defiantly, D-E-F-I-A-N-T-L-Y. Numerous people think this is how you spell definitely, and it is definitely not, because that is the word defiantly. And when texting and, autocorrect and all that things, that's not a wrong word, it's just not the word you think it is. So that's another one of those things where, although it's what people think it is not. So I personally still want to believe it's the Berenstain Bears, but as you delve through this and get deeper into what the possibilities are and what's more ridiculous or what's less ridiculous, you start to wonder, can I trust my own imagination or memory of my childhood? So I'm gonna leave it there, guys. Personally, I think it's Berenstain. Obviously, I don't not believe, but I don't put a lot of merit into the idea that it is a different dimension or a different timeline, and I'm now living in timeline A, and I was from timeline E, and yada, 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 yada. I don't buy into that. But I do think this is a common mistake, such as, such as the Mandela effect would grant us. Go ahead and give me your comments down below and tell me what you think. Is it Sex in the City? Is it Interview with a Vampire? When did these people die? Things like that. There's a lot of these out there, and it's actually a really cool thing to investigate and ask your friends about. So, I'm giving you homework. Go do that. Go look the Mandela effect up, look at some of these, leave your comments below and tell me, is it the Berenstain Bears or not? Give this video a thumbs up. I appreciate you guys watching so much. Share it with your friends, and I will see you either Tuesday or Thursday for the next video.